achieved.
So we are coming off an event, UFC on ESPN 11, which featured a debuting and relatively young fighter. 5 fights in, 5 first-round finishes. Ultimately gets to the end of round 2 of a demanding fight where he is, behind and taking a beating. He, on multiple occasions, requests that his cornermen call the fight, saying, "I'm done," asking for them to save him. And unfortunately, that doesn't happen. And traditionally, that would be the hot topic of discussion, at least for my show, as it is in the MMA world, and various people weighing in on their viewpoints on how this handles. But I'm actually going to take a moment to segue from the idea of quitting to, unfortunately, announce something else. I have decided that Kamikaze Overdrive MMA predictions will be coming to a conclusion in the not-too-distant future. I will be shutting down the show and my website and moving on from this chapter in my life. There's a variety of reasons. MMA related, just with various things, and I probably will get into them at some point in time in a future video when I do officially close the doors on my website. I was looking, and the delay in producing this video has nothing to do with that. It's my actual job as a school teacher. I was working on report card marks and comments, and those things kind of forced the delay of this show. But ultimately, I looked back, and I was looking for an appropriate time when to finish, and I realized that the very first prediction show I ever did was UFC Live Jones versus Matt Yushchenko, which transpired on August 1st, 2010. And I looked down the future lineup, and I realized that on August 1st, 2020, we get Holly Holm versus Irene Aldana in the main event of a UFC, I believe it's a fight night. And I thought, well, that's 10 years to the day, start to finish. I feel that's an appropriate time to ride off into the sunset, if you will, and end my running of the my show, which is we're closing in. We're going to fall just short, I believe, of 400 official episodes when it comes to this my episode count. So I have about 6 events left, including this one, and we'll see how things go over the next couple of weeks, and as we close the show out. On that note, welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions. As always, I am your host, Scott Johnson, and on this episode of the show, we are breaking down the upcoming UFC on ESPN 12 event, which will transpire from, yet again, the UFC Apex Center in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'll be giving you my 5 main card predictions, including the massive lightweight bout between Dustin Poirier and Dan the Hangman Hooker. All of my preliminary picks, as per usual, will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net, so please check them out there. The bet packs will also be for sale. I've had a bit of a rough showing of late, just not very impressed with my performance. And we will see how that, see if we can improve that as we close things out. You can follow me on Twitter at KO_predictions. One thing I do kind of intend to do is keep my Twitter open a little bit longer and maybe continue to post things as fights go on, because I'm still a fight fan. That's certainly worth mentioning. And I'm still going to enjoy watching the events with a little less prep and time spent preparing for them. Nonetheless, you can follow me on Twitter and continue to interact there. And on that note, we've got some pretty awesome fights to get to. Let's get to our first main card prediction. The opening fight of the night goes down in the UFC's... Actually, it's a catchweight bout, 150 pounds. My apologies. So a catchweight fight featuring... just checking the record. The undefeated 7-0 Sean Woodson taking on the 22-8 Julian Erosa. Erosa stepping in on short notice, and the odds reflecting that. He currently sits at a plus 350 favorite. Woodson a sizable minus 450 underdog on the return. Now, this is a catchweight bout. Canadian Kyle Nelson, who's kind of an enjoyable fighter to watch. He's definitely aggressive, puts on a show, forced to pull out with visa issues, and Erosa stepping in on very short notice. Woodson, this is a sophomore appearance in the promotion. He debuted with a decision win over Kyle Bochniak, which was a fairly solid performance. For Erosa, he's currently enjoying his second stint, I say enjoying with air quotes, his second stint in the UFC. His first stint, he went 1-1. Second time around, he's lost 3 straight, hasn't fought in a year. This seems like one of those bouts where it's like no one else wanted it. Erosa's taking the opportunity to get back in there on short notice and see what he can do. Physically, Woodson, a very tall 6'2", Comparatively, Erosa's tall as well, only 1 inch shorter than Woodson. Woodson will have a 4-inch reach advantage. He is the younger man by 3 years. Woodson traditionally fights 145 pounds, but he's a very tall man, as I said, so it's not going to be a huge issue to go up to 155 or 150. Erosa spent time in both divisions, so that will give him an opportunity to kind of not have to cut down to 145, but still not be as big as he is at 155. Now, for Julian Erosa, he's one of these guys. He's capable in a lot of areas, but just not super fantastic in any one. 10 wins by knockout, 9 submission wins, all coming on the regional scene. And it's just, he's one of these guys who you know what you're getting with him. He's going to go out there, he's going to engage, and he's shown if he's going to win, it's probably going to be by finish. And if he's not, he's going to take a beating and potentially get finished in the process. He's been knocked out 4 times in his career. He's 3-4 on the scorecards as well. When he fought Julio Arce, he was looking fairly strong in that fight. Even though he was losing the bout, he at least was putting up a good showing against a very tough opponent. And ultimately got finished late in that matchup. He was dominated by Grant Dawson on the mat and eventually went the distance. Could have been finished a couple of times, I felt, but went the distance, survived. And then in his re-debut with the company, brutally knocked out by Devontae Smith in the first round, just in epic fashion. So again, he's one of these guys, he'll take a beating, he'll hang in there, and I think the UFC likes having these guys around simply because they are the type that make other fighters look really good, and at the same time can have a few moments of brilliance themselves. Now for Woodson, he's a very long and awkward fighter, not much taller than Erosa, but he's still physically built in a very odd manner. He just appears to be like all legs, like a shorter torso, and just it makes it very awkward, and he used that very effectively against Bochniak. He frustrated him with his length. You know, every time Bochniak got in, he had to eat a few shots, and then with the movement that Woodson employed as well, it prevented Kyle from really finding any success, continued success over the entire fight. It just prevented him from getting into his own range, and just lots of odd movement, hand movement, throwing things around, just very peculiar, if you will, with his body motions. He throws some decent kicks. He's got a solid jab. He comes from a boxing background. He won the Contender Series with a flying knee, which is very impressive. He rocked Bochniak with a stepping knee as well at one point. He'll mix in some nice uppercuts, and again, because of his odd body shape, it's like knees and uppercuts come from these angles that people aren't expecting, and they're very hard to anticipate, engage, and of course defend against as well. Now, he did spend some time on his back in his Contenders bout, which is not ideal. And Bochniak did try to employ a kind of a ground-based attack with minimal success. And I guess the MO on Woodson is if you can get him down in the middle of the cage, that's your best bet. If you get him down along the cage, he's very good at wall walking, getting back to his feet. Get him stretched out, different story. You know, Erosa has shown he can grapple, but he's not the type of guy who's going to come out and spam takedowns with regularity and put you on the mat. And again, he hasn't shown he can finish at this level, which is absolutely concerning. When you consider the fact he's coming in on short notice, he won't have his traditional length advantage that he normally has over a lot of fighters, which helps him out to maybe overcome some of his issues there. I just think these are some major concerns. And Woodson, just his awkward style and just the kicks and punches he mixes in with those flying knees, I just think at some point something is going to land and put Erosa down. And my prediction is Sean Woodson to defeat Julian Erosa by TKO. Moving up the ladder, we are in the UFC's heavyweight division as the former light heavyweight Gian Villante, a 17-11-0, takes on the crochet boss Maurice Greene, 8 wins and 4 defeats. Currently, Villante is the plus 187 underdog, Greene returning at minus 225. Briefly looking at Tapology, a heavy number of individuals backing Greene as the favorite. A lot of people picking him to win this fight outright. Now, Villante, he's going back up to heavyweight. The last time he fought at heavyweight was against Chad Griggs way back in a Strikeforce Grand Prix reserve bout in 2011, which he got finished in a very entertaining bout. It was back and forth. He's coming off a loss to Michael Oleksiejczuk via TKO. He's traded wins and losses for the majority of his UFC career. The last time he paired wins together was back in 2015. So it tells you he's kind of been an up-and-down guy. But again, he's this action fighter who we know what we're going to get. He's going to go there, he's going to slug it out with you, and he's probably going to get finished, or he might get a finish along the way. Not always the case, but you know what I'm talking about. For Greene, he won 3 in a row to start his UFC career. Kind of got off to a good UFC run, and because of his frame and just... people looked at him and said, oh, is he somebody to watch? But he has since lost back-to-back bouts to Sergey Pavlovich and Alexei Oleinik, both getting finished in both of those fights. Physically, Greene, 6'7", monsters, 4 inches taller than the former light heavyweight. He'll have a 4-inch reach advantage. My anticipation that Greene will come in anywhere from 15 to 20 pounds heavier than Villante as well. And he's the younger fighter by a year. So the question we need to look at here is how does moving up to heavyweight impact Villante? Most likely, he's not going to cut any weight. He will not have to cut any weight to make this weight class. So there are 2 scenarios. He might cut a little bit, but there are 2 scenarios. Number one, that not cutting weight will keep him from being drained and really help his durability and just overall ability to walk into a fight and not feel physically diminished. He could gain a bit of a speed advantage over the larger men at heavyweight, and the spark of moving to a new division where he kind of gets a rebirth could invigorate him and produce good results. Scenario number 2 is this is more of a move out of desperation or necessity, as he's pumping up from light heavyweight and making the move simply because he has no other options, knows he needs to do something different, and simply put, is taking what he can to stay active in the UFC. Additionally, the extra weight makes him sluggish. Putting on those extra pounds, not cutting them down, actually diminishes his physical abilities. And just the size and power of the larger men is too much for him to deal with, and he succumbs for that reason. So those are the 2 scenarios. Which one are we going to see play out here? Obviously, we can determine, we can think to ourselves what we think is going to happen, but we can't actually, we can't know a certainty until after the fight's over. Now, the first thing you look at Villante, his cardio's not good. Not good. We've seen it on multiple occasions falter and cost him fights. He's one of these guys, he's like 1.5 rounds and done. And he can go deep into fights and still be there, but his abilities simply take a turn off, a stark drop off once the fight starts getting into that, beyond that 5-minute mark. Overall, he's 5-6 in decisions, so that kind of is indicative of that. He's gone to split decision 5 times, winning 3. He had 4 consecutive bouts at one point that went to split decisions, and it's just like his inability to definitively, for a guy who's a plus, he seems like a plus athlete, a very good athlete, good training partners as well. He's trained with Stipe, he's trained with Chris Weidman a lot of his career. I think Weidman's his brother-in-law, if I remember correctly. You'd think if you're going the distance and you have that physical athletic ability, you should be able to put the stamp on people enough to say, hey, look, I didn't finish him, but I did got the better of them. Not necessarily the case with Villante. He's also been knocked out 5 times, which is kind of concerning. And then the cardio and the durability kind of go hand in hand. He tends to slow down, he gets hurt, he slows down more, and often he gets finished. That's very concerning. His last stoppage victory came all the way back in 2015 versus some lower level competition, which, it makes you question whether or not he can get a finish against some of the better heavyweights and what his ceiling is in this division. Again, it could be a one and done opportunity. Now, his best bet and his best tools, he's got some good leg kicks. We saw him utilize those against Corey Anderson and really diminish Corey Anderson's movement and eventually set up the finish. He has a pretty solid jab. He can work that as well, and he'll come with an overhand right. In addition to that, he needs to stay mobile. Make those big heavyweights, make a guy like Maurice Greene use that big frame and turn and follow him, and which could be counterintuitive in the sense that it could slow down Villante as well if he's moving too much, but he needs to avoid that power, maybe mix in a takedown or 2 if Greene gets tired, if this fight goes late into rounds 2 and 3, that's the case, and just mix up his offense, be more diverse. Now, for Greene, he comes from a kickboxing background, and you add that with the reach and his potential power, and that's going to trouble Villante a lot. Especially if John starts to fade in this fight and he just simply is not there. That's a huge concern. Greene will mix in some nice kicks, calf kicks, low kicks. He'll work as much as he can in there. And that's going to make it tough at times for Villante to close distance if Villante is hesitant at all and sits on the outside. We've seen Greene be able to carry a pace deeper into fights if he's not pushed overly hard. He showed in that Hughes split decision that he absolutely can fight in a manner that is going to, let him go the distance and still be victorious. That's huge. Also, when you go into his other fights, he dropped Junior Albini with a quick jab. He did get rushed. He did get knocked down when he rushed in that, but he eventually put him down and got the finish in that fight. Greene can also operate on the mat. He's got some submission skills. Probably won't be that here. This seems like it's going to be the knockdown slugfest that most people are anticipating for heavyweights, for certainly lower level heavyweights. At the same time, he's a little bit stiff for my liking. And I thought Sergey Pavlovich put him down with relative ease. And you look at his performances, you look at his his fights. Jeff Hughes beat him originally, came in on very short notice, and it was a split decision. Michael Batista, I think it's Michael or Michelle Batista, whoever, in his debut, one and done in the UFC, very green, not with the organization anymore as far as I can know, and just one of those victories where it's like, yeah, you submitted him, but he obviously didn't belong here. And then Junior Albini, who had been struggling tremendously, nearly finished Greene, or nearly, put him on his butt when he came forward and got a little reckless, and eventually succumbed as well. And those are not high level wins. The Hughes fight, I think, goes differently if Hughes is a full camp. And then you go Sergey Pavlovich, took him out of there with relative ease. Oleinik submitted him. Not a great resume for Greene, and I don't want to diminish anybody's performances in the UFC, but you see what I'm driving at here. Villante, he might have a limited window for success here, but that might be all he needs to get this done. And I know a lot of people might be rolling their eyes listening to this prediction, but I look at the way Pavlovich put a couple hands on Greene, and Greene kind of folded up and shut down. And, Villante throws a pretty good hard right. He's going to step into the pocket and he's going to let it fly. And there's the other concern is that if Greene slows down a little bit, after the first round. Villante's that type of guy who's going to hang in there and could just clinch and put him against the cage. I can see, Villante kind of turning this into a dogfight and getting inside the reach of Greene, and there's a very good chance Villante gets clipped and knocked out. But at the same time, I'm looking at Greene going, I'm just not impressed with what he's brought to the table. It seems like once people get beyond those first few exchanges with him and beyond his kicks, he's in serious trouble. Look for Villante here to close in on Greene, push him into the cage periodically, come over the top of that big right hand against a taller opponent, so it will be available. Again, this is not a popular pick. It's kind of a gut feeling, but my prediction is Gian Villante using the smaller cage to close the distance and land something big. My prediction is Gian Villante to defeat Maurice Greene by knockout. In our next matchup, we're in the UFC's middleweight division for a very fun fight that stands to have a lot of entertaining back and forth on the ground. We will feature the 14-3 Brendan Allen taking on the debuting short notice Kyle Daukaus with a current record of 9 wins and no losses. Now for Allen, a sizable favorite at -300, the debuting fighter Daukaus plus 240. Now, Allen was originally scheduled to face Ian Heinisch, which is a fight I hope they reschedule because that sounds like a lot of fun. And just another very tough opponent for Allen. Daukaus is stepping in on a couple of weeks' notice. So far, Allen 2-0 in the UFC with high-caliber victories for Kevin Holland and Tom Breeze, finishing both fighters. Very impressive. Very strong performances. You add Ian Heinisch to that mix, and that puts you up for a strong finish of 2020 and even better 2021 for a young fighter. Now for Daukaus, comes in undefeated. Trio of victories under the CFFC banner, won their middleweight championship, beat Jonathan Webb as well during his time there. Webb, a former UFC fighter, had a bit of hype coming into the organization. Daukaus got a chance at the Contender Series, a decision victory that didn't get him the call, but he went back to the regional scene, continued to compete, continued to win, and ultimately gets an opportunity here. Basically, Daukaus, 6'3", very tall for the division, 1 inch taller than Allen, who's also very tall. 1 inch reach advantage as well. 2 years older is the UFC newcomer. Now, Daukaus looking quickly. He fought in February, so it's not like he's rusty. He's been sitting out for a long time. 8 of his 9 career wins have come by submission, but one thing I really like to see is that only 3 of those victories have come in the opening round. He has 4 second-round submission victories, which shows us he's not a one-and-done fighter. He's not going to come out, go one round, can't get it, and it's over. 5 Bravo chokes overall, 3 rear naked chokes, so you kind of see what he's going for. He's going for the neck. On his Contender Series bout, he had some issues with the grappling. His opponent spent some time on his back, spent some time on the defensive. He was aggressive in those positions. He attacked. He had some more success as the fight advanced. Took over in the 3rd round and kind of pulled away in a decision victory. He really likes to attack his opponent's neck, and he has no victories by Darce choke on his record, but he will attempt it. And maybe it's just a defensive maneuver where it's like, hey, this is here. If you keep pushing, back off, and it's very effective. And it's only a matter of time before he locks one up for good. Generally speaking, he utilizes his length fairly well to attack submissions. He will spread out and kind of keep his opponent pinned down if he gets that opportunity. He'll work in the ground and pound because he can, jack his arm back and smash somebody because of that extra length that works very well for him. He will attack some submissions in some bad spots. And on the regional scene, you can work your way out of those bad spots if they don't work. That could be costly at the UFC level. And one of the guys who's going to make you pay for that is Brendan Allen, a jiu-jitsu black belt. Super aggressive on the mat. He chains his takedowns and his transitions together. He will work from the clinch. He'll throw some body locks at you, and he just keeps pushing until he puts you in a position that he's comfortable with. Huge experience situation gained by him fighting 2 solid UFC fighters and finishing both of them in Breeze and Holland. And 2 guys who are also big and lanky, so for him, fighting a guy like Daukaus isn't going to be a big shock. Where Daukaus has fought some guys in the regional scene who were relatively short for the division, maybe even blown up welterweights, and that certainly is a period of adjustment when you come to the UFC and you're finding guys just as big, if not bigger than you, and how do you deal with that? Now for Breeze, Breeze at one point attempted to take Allen down. Allen did a very nice job of countering him, working in a top position. His hips and his balance are very effective tools. I think I said he's a good transitional fighter. He keeps pushing. He does a solid job just maintaining control of you and working in a manner that eventually you're going to give up and you're going to give out. I really liked his submission defense against Breeze. He was very aware of the scenarios. Breeze at one point had a leg up over Allen's shoulder during a transition when they went back to the mat, and the commentary team pointed out that basically Breeze is looking to bring his other leg up, and he can attack with a triangle, and almost on cue, you saw Allen step over top of the additional leg, really shut it down, and stifle any possibility that Breeze could attack with that. And then he went on the offensive from that position. So very mindful of his surroundings, and that's very important when you're in these crazy scrambles. He had that good back and forth with Holland. Obviously, there were some spots where he got put in that weren't ideal, but he got out of them and got the better of the position, eventually finished him. I anticipate something similar here, maybe somewhere between the Breeze fight, which was one-way traffic, and the Holland fight, which was back and forth until Holland got finished. Now, what I look at here is the big thing with Daukaus coming in on short notice and not having the experience that Allen had. Allen is just a better version of Daukaus as far as I'm concerned when I look at this. The grappling exchanges should be crazy, but Allen will end in the better spots more often than not. And look for that pace to just be too much for a guy coming in with a short camp making his debut. Daukaus is tough. He's a gamer. He's a tough fighter. He's going to put up a good back and forth with this guy, but my prediction is Brendan Allen to defeat Kyle Daukaus by submission. In the co-main event of the evening, we're in the UFC's welterweight division as the always entertaining 13-6 Platinum Mike Perry takes on the 6-2 Mickey Gall. Now, looking first at Gall, he is a plus 250 underdog. The Platinum one returning at minus 334, depending on what books you're looking at. Now, Perry started all the rage in the UFC. He came in, he was a little, putting guys out, just very entertaining, very brash, in your face, like me or don't like me, I'm here to stay. 4 wins in his first 5, very impressive. All finished, looked like a potential star. But since that run, he's gone 2-5 with his only victories over Alex Oliveira and Paul Felder, essentially guys who are, blown up lightweights. I know Oliveira spent a lot of time at welterweight, but you know what I'm saying. Smaller guys who he's able to bully around. For Gall, he's coming off a victory. He started also in the UFC with a good run, 3 straight wins against really low-level guys. CM Punk, Mike Jackson, not exactly guys who are blowing the doors off the organization at the top level. But over his last 4, since he's faced some higher-level competition, he's gone 2-2 with losses to Brown and Diego Sanchez. A fight I correctly predicted. Gall, 4 inches taller than Perry, 3-inch reach advantage, and 1 year younger than Platinum Mike. Now, each in this fight has legitimate approach and avenue to victory. It's Perry via striking and Mickey Gall via grappling, not the breakthrough idea of the century. Now, Gall is not a great wrestler, but he's the type of fighter who's going to close the gap, clinch up with you, drag you to the ground, hang on you till he gets you to the floor, and just be there until the position presents itself. Often with Mickey Gall, especially against those lower level guys, 1 takedown has been enough. In 3 of his 5 victories, he's landed just a single takedown. He landed 2 against Sage Northcutt before finishing him. Against Mike Jackson, he landed none. He knocked him down and submitted him in that fight. So, not exactly a guy who's going to chain takedowns together until he wears you out, but he's very opportunistic when he does get the opportunity to put you on the floor. Against Diego, 0 takedowns, 0 takedown attempts as well, and got finished on the mat. Claimed to have had an injury in that fight. Against Brown, 0 for 2 in takedowns. Spent a lot of time on his back in that matchup, and had some moments, got on top a couple times, but just got the worst of it when it comes right down to it. Again, he likes to close the gap, getting tight, clinch up. He'll rotate to his opponent's back standing, and he'll either drag you down from that position, or he'll just get a body lock and try and force you to the floor, and that's what he's going to be looking for here. Now, the threat of the clinch has seemed to slow some fighters down, especially in his last matchup. Gall's not a super threatening striker. He'll throw some body kicks and some punches, but guys realize that if they close the distance too recklessly, he might be able to get them on the mat, and that's what they don't want. 5 of 6 wins by submission overall. 4 have come in round 1. He's 2-2 outside of round 1, so his ideal scenario is an early submission victory. There you go. For Mike Perry, 11 of his 13 wins have come by knockout. 2-4 on the scorecards. He's coming off his first knockout loss. He also has a submission loss versus Donald Cerrone. He has 7 first-round wins, 6-4 outside of the opening round. His ideal scenario, a first-round knockout. So there's a legitimate chance that this fight might not make it past the 5-minute mark. Hey, anything can happen, though. Perry is a power puncher. He has struggled against more technical strikers. He thrives when he can be the bully. Back opponents down, out-muscle him on the cage, throw those big thunderous shots, be the better striker, and that's where he really is in his best, his element. In this matchup, he's the far more dangerous striker. That's absolutely the case. But can he stay vertical long to employ that offense? Can he stay vertical long long enough to land and hurt Mickey Gall? Now, he has a 70% takedown defense. He gave 3 takedowns against Santiago Ponzinibbio, 2 against Alan Jouban, lost both those bouts. And again, when you give it up takedowns, it makes it hard to win those bouts, but at the same time, against Mickey Gall, he's probably not the wrestler, at least the capable wrestler of either one of those individuals. At least he hasn't shown that in the UFC. Perry will slow down a bit in fights where he's pushed, but so will Mickey Gall, so it's not like he's going to smoke you with his cardio. The difference is if Gall can't take him down, he won't be scoring enough points to win. For Perry, he did well against Oliveira in the clinch, where with Mickey Gall, with Mike Perry, I anticipate that even if he gets taken down, if he can get back to his feet, he's going to catch up with his hands. That's what I'm trying to drive at here. I think Gall's going to have trouble changing levels against that shorter opponent and not eating the power punches of Platinum Mike Perry. I'm not a big Mike Perry fan. He's had some questionable training situations. His corner situation with his ex-wife and everything else is just It just adds other elements that are just not overly desirable when you're looking at a fighter. But ultimately, I think he gets back to his finishing ways here. He'll probably catch Gall coming in maybe after he slows down. And my prediction is Mike Perry to defeat Mickey Gall by, I'm going to say TKO. Moving now to the main event of the evening, and an absolute barn burner and a fantastic bout. We're in the UFC's lightweight division as former title challenger and interim title champion, the 25-6 Dustin the Diamond Poirier takes on the Hangman, the 20-8 Dan Hooker. Currently, the odds see Hooker as a plus 180 underdog, Dustin Poirier minus 220 as the favorite. Now, Poirier is coming off that title fight loss to Khabib Nurmagomedov. He had won 4 in a row, 6 of 7 with that no contest against Eddie Alvarez mixed in, 9-2 with a no contest over his last 12 bouts. Very impressive run for the Diamond to get himself into that title fight opportunity. Now, Hooker has won 3 in a row, 7 of 8. Beat Paul Felder, beat Al Iaquinta, beat the welterweight title challenger Gilbert Burns, finished him, beat James Vick, beat Jim Miller. That's a strong list of opposition. His only loss in his recent outings has been against Edson Barboza in a great fight that he just took a ton of, his body didn't want to give out, but he got beat up in that fight. I had Barboza to win that fight. I was very happy with that prediction. Physically, Hooker's 3 inches taller, 3-inch reach advantage for the Kiwi as well. Hooker 1 year younger than Poirier, and both guys have formerly fought at featherweight, so it's just nice to see them moving up, not hurting themselves quite as much, and finding success at 155 pounds. Now, when you look at Poirier first, this is a post-title fight letdown scenario, and I know it's not a sure thing, but we've seen on multiple occasions fighters that get up to that opportunity, lose, they come out flat in their second fight. Dustin built himself up to the title shot, picked up some huge victories, really him against the world, seeming like he wasn't getting his opportunity, just kept winning fights. The best run of his UFC career, both in amount of fights and time, but also quality of opposition. And it all comes to a very abrupt one-sided end when he gets choked out in round 3 by the champion. Now, with that loss, obviously Justin Gaethje and the champion Nurmagomedov are ahead of him. Tony Ferguson is probably still potentially ahead of him. Conor McGregor, whatever the fuck is going on with him, is most likely ahead of him because, Conor says and Dana does, whether they want to admit it or not. These guys are all still probably ahead of him, even with a win here. So you have to ask that question, how does Dustin Poirier get back up? How, for a guy who's been so close, how does he motivate himself for big fights? Now, a win here over Hooker is very impressive. It gets himself right back in contention, and you have to know, Poirier is saying, if Justin Gaethje beats Habib, I got to finish over Gaethje. I could call for that fight, and I might get it. I might need one more win, but I might get it. So I'm not that far out of a winnable fight where I become champion. And that's definitely, I love Dustin Poirier. He's a great fighter. And that's definitely a mindset I hope he's looking at, and I hope an opportunity that presents itself to him eventually. Now, for Dan Hooker, he's been building himself towards this opportunity as well. Big win at home against Felder and Al Iaquinta. Last time he had a high-profile fight, he did lose to Edson Barboza, as we previously mentioned, but the guy's been impressive. Now, another thing to consider here as well is that Hooker is fighting on the road. At home, fighting in New Zealand and Australia. I know, 2 regions of the world. Just generally speaking, his portion of the world. He is a very impressive 6-1. When he fights away from home, just 4-3. Not nearly as strong a record, a 500 record versus almost an undefeated record. He's going to have to shake that off here if he wants to swim with the big boys. Now, for Poirier, it's also worth noting, he's never lost back-to-back fights in his career. He rebounds very well. Usually goes on prolonged winning streaks. He's one of these guys who just gets motivated and gets back into it. This is a horse of a different color, though, as he's been to the top of the mountain. He's had a title belt. He's had his name called. Can he rebound effectively? Now, when you look at Poirier, he's a very capable striker, very good pocket striker. He gets in there, he can really whip those big power shots in there. He can also work at range, though. He's gonna jab away, and he can do volume, which is very impressive. Yeah, that's one of the things with Poirier. He's one of these nice mixes of power and volume. He can hurt you with one big shot, or it can be that death by accumulation where he puts it on you, and eventually you crumple. When you go toe-to-toe with Max Holloway the way he did and just out-volume him, that's very impressive. Hooker has shown, for his own sake, to be more aggressive. Against Felder and against Iaquinta, he pushed forward, he engaged more. He's going to have to do that here. His volume has been much better in those fights. It hasn't been to the height of Poirier at his best, but if Hooker can elevate a little bit and Poirier comes back down a little bit, it's going to be damn close that way. Dustin Poirier's been hurt in a couple of fights, and that is a major question mark, especially against a big hitter like Hooker, who's a big man. Hooker, Hooker, I give him, he's very durable. He's shown he can take an absolute bludgeoning and keep coming. And when you add that he has a bit of a reach and height advantage, he should be able to touch Poirier in a way that Poirier's not able to touch him, or at least not to the effect. When you look at some of the key, aspects of this fight, I'd say the volume edge goes to Poirier if he fights up to his potential. I'd say the speed also favors Dustin Poirier, and the power factor is very close. The size and length, absolutely in favor of Hooker. And a big factor is that durability. And that if the power is close, but the durability favors Hooker, you have to wonder, does Hooker get the edge there significantly because of it? And when you figure in the motivation factor, yes, they both should be motivated, but Hooker is in a better spot. I think he's more hungry to walk away with this. The size of the cage here in this fight, and we've talked about it periodically in here, and it's become a running narrative over this Apex experiment situation here. The size of the cage could absolutely hurt Dustin Poirier's ability to navigate around, circle out, and avoid that pressure of Hooker and avoid the punching of Hooker, especially if he hurts him. Hooker's takedown defense has been solid, and I don't think Poirier is going to go for those takedowns unless he gets hurt, or if the striking exchanges are going badly, he might look to that direction. But if it's out of desperation, Hooker should be able to shrug him off. Look for Hooker to really do a good job of angling off and keeping Poirier at the end of his strikes. Even though Dustin's a fantastic striker himself, I think we're just going to see Hooker take that next step. And if Poirier's off his game a little bit, this is not a good matchup for him. He's going to keep Dustin backed off. He's going to tag Dustin on the outside. And I think what you're going to see is that the impact of Hooker's strikes combined with the reach might make up for a little difference in offensive volume. And I think Hooker's going to land something, and we're going to see Dan Hooker take that next step. And it's an upset. My prediction is Dan Hooker to defeat Dustin Poirier by TKO. So those are my 5 main card predictions for UFC on ESPN 12. All of my preliminary picks. I think there's 5 right now with a fight. It's still kind of up in the air as to whether they're going to find a replacement. All of my preliminary picks will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. You can follow me on Twitter at KO_predictions. The bet packs will also be for sale for this event for $15. If you missed my intro, long-winded as it was, a quick reminder that this is my farewell tour, if you will. August 1st will be my final event, predicting fights and breaking them down and posting predictions and everything else. That signals 10 years to the day of my first event that I predicted. Just time to go. We'll talk more about that as we get closer, and probably as we when I am officially done, I might post a video outlining some of the reasons I've opted to walk away and some of the things that have I've just seen in the sport that necessarily don't encourage me to continue. And on that note, folks, thanks as always for tuning in. I greatly appreciate it, and we will talk to you again soon. Take care.